So do I. Ready as I'm going to be.
You're live.
You keep saying that.
You're live. We both got fresh haircuts.
Yeah, spring.
Yeah, spring trim.
And
how you doing? This is Mark. That's Gary. Gary's Guitars, weekly Q&A, talking about guitars, things to do with guitars, anything to do with guitars,
etc.
All right, so welcome. This is how it goes. If you have any questions or comments, you leave them in the chat, and then we can integrate you into the discussion. So you can ask about guitars, amps,
Fried clams.
Fried clams.
That was my idea for the day.
Very opinionated about fried clams, I think, and so that could take some time.
Yeah.
So we're going to wait for our listenership to our viewership, our friends there to load up. Michael Krause says, do you have any recommendations for electric guitars with larger, wider necks? That's a good one. I have XXL hands and can't make the A bar chord and play the E string. So, Fender with bigger. So we can tell them about Dan's neck. Remember Dan, the bass player.
Oh, yeah.
Scottish bass player. What's his name?
What about his neck?
He bought a Fender with a gigantic neck. Remember that?
Vaguely.
So he had Wormouth make, or they do make, and he got a guitar neck for bass players. It was pretty big.
So it was like a 5-string neck, but he only had 4, or was it a 6-string neck that only had 5 strings?
No, it was his guitar. It was a guitar neck that was just wide and big. You remember that? You put 2 of them on, 2 different guitars.
That was like a year ago. That's a long time.
Yeah. So they actually make so that is an oversized, super oversized neck. Any other comfortable to play with big hands, Fender neck options?
Oh, for electric guitar?
Yeah.
Well, the biggest factory neck is the Pepino from Godin. It's almost 2 inches at the nut, or it is 2 inches at the nut.
Yeah, that's an acoustic. Yeah. So it's like a classical spacing at the nut.
It's bigger than classical. It's humongous.
Yeah. We got one coming in. We got one order.
Yeah. And we've talked about this in the past about different neck shapes.
Yes.
And Fender's contours. I recently learned we're looking at it the wrong way. Fender made one neck. They're all Ds. A, B, C, and D refers to the width of the neck. So A is the narrowest, D is the widest.
Oh, interesting.
So they're all the same radius
on the back.
Except when they get smaller, the radius gets sharper.
I see.
Or greater.
Yeah, you're thinking of it. So it feels like a different
radius. It's not 4 radius. It's 4 widths.
So what's the radius? Widest Fender neck?
1 7/8, I think it was. Pretty good.
And that is called the.
That's the D.
That's the D.
A is 1.5. This is at the nut, which is pretty skinny. Not as skinny as the old Gibson necks.
Yeah, those are super skinny, but yet somehow they work. I have 2 old Gibson necks. I got catcher's mitts for hands. I don't know if you've seen these. And somehow I can play in D's, A minors, right at the nut position. There's just something ergonomic about those Gibson necks that just work.
Yeah.
Shine Dog is saying hi. So also chime in, just say hi. Let us know you're out there. What were you going to say?
Neck widths.
Neck width.
Well, acoustics were sort of one standard width forever until steel strings, till Seagull came out with a wider nut, not hugely more wide, like 1/8 of an inch. But their idea at the time was it gives your right hand more space to get in between the strings for
the finger picking. Yeah.
And now, of course, like some other Seagull innovations, everybody does them.
So what they also did was they made a wider neck that was skinnier. So they changed the shape of the back.
Right.
So that the idea is you don't need bigger hands to play the wider neck, because it's also, which Taylor kind of ran with that skinny neck thing too. I don't know who came up with the idea first. Probably Seagull.
Yeah.
Because I saw an early Taylor guitar. One of our customers has a handmade Robert Taylor guitar, and it looks a lot like a Martin D28.
Right.
Feels like a Martin. The neck feel, the look. He started out making Martins. And then he did his innovations.
But my ultimate neck diameter, radius, width story, or advice is to tell them about Bobby Hearn,
Yeah.
who makes Mark's fingers look like Paganini's.
Well, so he was a stonemason
forever. He had little
He just
cigar butts for
crushed
fingers.
his faint hands all day long. He was just smushing his hands, flattening them out. Whoops.
They were tiny. He was a big man,
Big man.
but also one of the best guitar players we've seen in this area. And he'd play anything. Didn't matter.
Yeah.
He didn't think about neck size. I said, I used to know a guy, his finger just barely reached across. He could play anything. So,
Yeah, there's where there's a will, there's a way.
Right.
And yeah, his fingers were about twice as wide as mine but as big. Yeah.
Right.
He just made it work, and he would do this thing where he reach behind the nut and do bends from behind the nut and stretch, and his hands were.
Yeah, it might have been a little harder for him, but he could
Yeah.
do it.
The music's in, yeah. That's what I mean. I can play fiddle and mandolin. Look at these things, and
Right.
can you imagine that? I don't say I'm good at it, but
Yeah, we've had a number of customers. Well, I always wanted to play guitar, but my fingers are too short. Well, you have fingers. I see all 5 of them.
yeah.
You'll be fine.
We have customers who don't have 10 fingers. They do fine.
Or
What are you
Django.
complaining about? Yeah, and Django Reinhardt. Come on.
But ultimately, it's stylistic.
But yeah,
It
it's
makes
just
a difference.
a comfort thing as far as Michael's questions. Just like I want to be able to play that chord comfortably.
Right.
So there are different widths. So yeah, look for the D. Did you say that was?
Oh, that's the
that question?
widest
Yeah.
of the Fenders.
Yeah.
But yeah, like many things in the guitar world, it's all been done. If
Yeah.
you want a really skinny neck, a really wide neck, there's a guitar out there.
Yeah, there's that too. Yeah. Shine Dog just also commented, I can't play that well. My hands are too small. Blah, 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 blah.
No, they're not.
Yeah, I want to, people need to hear this, you got to, so just practice a lot. Yeah. Some people like to practice more than other people. Some people are born with the perfect hands to play guitar. Their names are usually Jimi Hendrix. The guy was just made to play the guitar.
Look at my fingers compared to yours.
Yeah. You got like an extra inch of
Yeah.
finger. Yeah.
He plays guitar 10 times better than I do.
So, but it is, having those long fingers, those long skinny fingers, that helps, but it's not where it's at, don't worry about it. I'll look at the Warmouth. Yeah. Oh yeah. So that, like I said, it was Warmouth that he got those necks from there specifically. I think he's a bass player who plays a 5-string bass all the time. Dan, McClellan, is that it? Yeah. He's so Scottish, he gets away with wearing a kilt.
Right.
You see him in a kilt and you're just like, oh yeah, hey, it's not like, hey, that's a guy in a kilt. So
there's 2 guys in town that wear a kilt.
Yeah, but he just he doesn't wear it all the time. Just every once in a while, oh, there he is in the kilt. Yeah, okay.
The other guy wears it all the time.
Yeah, that's Sean, right? Yeah,
Sean, the kilt guy.
Jimmy had a long thumb. That was the other thing. Jimi Hendrix, wrapping around. He could wrap you around the neck twice with that thumb. So that's how he get that technique too. But
yeah, there are things long fingers make easier.
Help you do, but a lot of rock stars are about 5'4". People forget that. Keith Richards would come up to here on you, like it's just Bruce Springsteen.
Buddy guy, I stood next to him once.
Yeah,
it's like down here somewhere. Whoa, who's that?
Who's that? Oh,
that's Buddy
it's
Guy.
Like a 3/4 buddy guy.
Isn't he cute?
Yeah. So excuses aren't for here and now. All right. So once again, just to fill anyone else in who's joining us, make a comment in the questions and ask a question in the comments. Say hi, first of all, and then also let us know what you want to talk about, because that's what we're here to do. And then if you're watching this after the fact, you can also leave questions in the comments and we'll address them later, with which we'll start right now.
We got a question from one
last
of our regulars.
From a regular.
Pete,
our man in Ireland. Dub delay to you folks out there. So we still don't know if it's because he's from Dublin or he loves dub music, because there's a lot of delay
or Dublin, New Hampshire.
So ask us, tell us about that when you check in there. But no, probably Dublin. I would say Ireland. You'd be a little more proud of that.
Yeah.
So he asked about the Highway 1 Strat because I said I had a Highway 1 Strat, and he wondered if we recommended it, and I said I do. So his question was, would you recommend upgrading anything? Oops, did we lose something here? I just lost this play. Would you recommend upgrading anything? Oh, we're still going over here.
That one looks fine.
Hold on, folks. Talk, Gary.
If you're there.
Is there anybody out there?
Are we still live?
Close that. Open this. Yeah, they were there. Sorry.
Okay. We might be back, or maybe we never left.
So, anyways, he asked about the Highway 1. And so I want to just chime in on that a little bit. First of all, he said, is there anything you would upgrade? So I would say this would get us into a nice little 5-minute discussion on whether or not to upgrade parts of your guitar and which ones and why.
Well, there's two directly connected aspects here. There's upgrading, which implies improving.
Yeah, right.
And then there's modding, which doesn't necessarily have to mean you're putting better parts on. Yeah. You're just putting parts that you want on it, which applies probably more to pickups than anything else. But so we're talking about both. Yeah.
So the first thing I'd say off of that is the tuners on the Highway 1, late 90s, early 2000s, Fender tuners. I think when they first went to Asian production on their hardware, they're not the greatest tuners. I kind of once in a while, so one thing when you're working with a tuner that's bad, which I meant to tell that guy with that Gibson, I just picked it up.
Oh,
he had a bad tuner. You tune, sometimes you go behind the note and go up to it, and it just kind of lock in a little better. And then if you go down to the note, if the gears, if something's just not quite having the right tension and all that. So here's, my bad tuner thing is always go behind the note and come up to it, which I meant to tell him on his G string.
Which you're supposed to do.
Well, yeah, which is, but
never tune down, always tune up.
But, so I find myself on the Strat just kind of wiggling it a little, like tuning to the note. I'm like, that wasn't it. Kind of going back, coming back up again. Okay, that looks like it's, not that they're failing. It's just that, you could get a little more precision out of Schallers, especially, or just any kind of premium tuner.
Are they Kluson style?
No, they're the first of the Fender no screw.
Oh, okay.
Backs. Yeah, that's when they introduced the those two little pilot hole things that they which are easy to drill with CAD cutting, but no fun to do if you're doing it hanging over the guitar.
I keep saying I'm never going to do it again, but I do.
Yeah.
I drilled through a headstock once.
Yeah, well, on that 62 Telly.
No, it wasn't. The guy didn't care, fortunately. But oops.
So that's an upgrade I would recommend on that. And then also we're talking about bridge upgrades. Is there such a thing, really?
Oh yeah, titanium.
Yeah, so the metal's quality has a lot to do with it.
I would presume on the Highway 1 it has the decent block on the back, like a Mexican Strat. It doesn't have the really cheap Chinese.
And I don't think. Yeah, it seems to be substantial.
It's not that carved out cast thing. It's a solid.
Yeah, it's a solid piece. Block of.
Those are fine, but you can get stainless steel ones, titanium ones for the ultimate in sustain and tone at $300 a block. So you can upgrade your bridge, but on a Strat it really depends on if you're using the tremolo or not. Like so many people now, they don't use the tremolo. It becomes much less of an issue. As Mark brought up when we were talking about it earlier, there's still a tonal aspect with the springs, the claw, the block.
A lot of metal that can resonate attached to the strings.
Yeah, even if you don't use it, there's a lot of metal there. And back in the day when things were a little more consistent and high quality, the springiness of a Strat tone was important. But you don't hear people talk about that anymore because it's kind of gone. I presume it's the
resonance of the
things.
springs.
There used to be good quality springs, and now.
What I'll say this is so the resonant quality of the springs. I got a cheap made in Korea, who makes it Grand Prix Strat. And I just noticed one day that the springs were just lovely. They're just ringing in harmony. They're in harmony with each other. And I was like, wow, that's wild, you know. And so I thought of like analyzing it. So like, you know, I like plucked them and they made sounds like on a vibraphone or something. Boom, boom, boom. Like finding what notes they are and getting, you know, and then buying a bunch of springs and then matching them. I was not stoned. Getting a bunch of springs and matching them for tone, and but maybe cheap springs also resonate in an interesting way. That was my postulate. Because these are
about it.
Yeah.
Certainly
anyway,
makes some sense.
And then, but whether to roll or not, that's another, you know, whether to go like a complete tremolo upgrade. That's maybe that's for another guitar.
Yeah, it's a function thing. If
Sean Hockey said Evertune bridges are amazing. I love mine is always tuned. So the Evertune bridge. Oh, was that the one that we had on the?
I don't know. I've heard the name, but I can't think of what it is.
Well, the one that has counterbalances built in, so it just keeps the string in tune all the time. Remember that? We had a. Is that? Yeah, tell us, Sean. Is that the one that with that really bizarre system that just keeps your strings in tune all the time? Remember those?
I think I ignored it.
Yeah. No, we had one in the store, and you're like, and you had to look it up and stuff to set it up. But yeah, you got it set up, and there's two ways to set up. You set it up to allow you to bend, and set up to make bends not happen. Just pure notes.
Well, you're not talking about the contraption that
contraption, yeah.
Oh yeah, that's not Evertune.
No.
I forget what it's called. I got the directions over there.
Yeah.
I'm not sure it ever made any difference.
This thing stayed in tune no matter what you did. Your strings didn't have to be up to pitch. It would know there was a. Yeah. Well, let's not get the folks confused on that. Let's catch up on some questions here. Sean also asked, do any of you play guitar on the show? No, we haven't. We decided this would be just a technical thing. So that's a different show. We will have some musicians as guests.
Yeah, we're negotiating with scheduling with some friends and who have not only impressive knowledge of guitars and related things, but play really well. So there'll be some playing.
Yeah. And at least talking about playing. But.
Right.
And then Shine Dog asked, do you guys sell vintage guitars? I would like to get a vintage Gibson 1960s Firebrand. Ooh, the Firebrand. 1980s Firebrand.
Yeah, there's no Firebrand.
But I need an honest seller. Yeah, the Firebrand. I had a Firebrand years ago. It was a good, cheap way to get a Gibson because no one wanted them.
Right. They were cheap Gibsons.
Cheap Gibsons that were, 80s. Yeah.
I remember those.
Yeah. We do sell vintage guitars, but only the ones we can find, and we don't have any of those right now. We don't have any vintage. We have a vintage Gibson archtop, but that's the only vintage Gibson we have right now.
Vintage Gibson.
We got a used Gibson,
Yeah, the vintage market is changed dramatically in the last 20 years.
No fun.
Used to be around. It was used to fairly regularly have a 63 Strat or a 64 P bass or couple of Tweed Fender amps, and now they're gone.
Yeah, you got to compete for the vintage stuff, and you got to. It used to be you could like go somewhere that had vintage stuff and like wheel and deal, and now it's like find another one, jerk. It's just there's never no way to negotiate anything out anymore either.
Right.
So we have one. Let's see here.
The most vintage thing recently was that SG. What was that? A 75 or 6?
Oh yeah, 76. That flew out of here. Yeah,
that was gone.
And they also they fly out fast if you're looking. So I guess that Silvertone I call vintage. So we might have like 6 guitars in the store that are
a 59 Silvertone Dano.
Yeah, recently. Yeah, I mean, just at any one time, we prefer used guitars. We just can't find them. They're just people just holding on to them or selling them privately.
Well, I remember before eBay.
Yeah, eBay is a part of it.
There were plenty of vintage guitars around.
Yep. Yard sales. I've seen people get guitars at yard sales. Good guitars. Used to be able to get Gibsons and Fenders at yard sales.
Right.
Back in my day. All right. Where's my little note?
I don't know why I thought of this recently, just briefly. 15 or 20 years ago, somebody walked in the door, Said, I was just over at the pawn shop, and they have a amp. It says Fender Harvard on it. Yeah, it's for sale. He said, yeah, go get it. What is it? Just go get it. It's a little tube amp made in the 50s. Not highly desirable, but and he said it's $50. Honestly, 30 seconds later, the door opens. Guy comes walking in holding the Fender Harvard amp. Look what I just got for $50 at the pawn shop.
Just missed it. Yeah.
Shouldn't have hesitated.
You snooze, you truly do lose. Well, also everyone who's watching, just chime in and say hi, ask and answer any questions, or join the discussion. Maybe that will be next.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, actually, we did have a short question from Peter Squires, who asked about his Sotec amp and why, when he turns off his amp, does it continue to play for several seconds? And that's something that it's a thing. And so let's talk about why that happens. It happens because your amp is badass.
It will not give up.
Yeah. The Russians never quit.
You may be done, but I'm
not. Perhaps you heard of Stalingrad. Come on. Russian stuff just does not quit. So not just that. That's one reason. But the second reason is because it has huge capacitors. And so the electricity comes into your amplifier, it goes through your transformer and through your power supply, and it turns into DC. And then there's these usually big capacitors that just store some excess power just to enable it to just run smoothly. Because it comes from the wall in AC, which is alternating current, which is a pain. You can't run anything on AC except your vacuum cleaner. Tick, 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 tick. Your electricity turning on and off. Not at random, but not good for an amp. So DC conversion, and then capacitors in your power supply that just hold a bunch of capacitance and allow your amp to have a good amp draw to function well. And so when you turn that off, those capacitors will slowly discharge. They won't turn off with the switch, so you'll still have power. You turn off the switch, you deprive the power supply of power, but whatever power is left over in there just kind of hangs out for a few seconds. And there have been amps that have stayed on for quite a few seconds.
Oh, yeah. It goes on and on and on.
Yeah.
Did I turn the switch?
Or when your amp goes pop when you turn it off, that's okay. Sometimes that's not a big problem. That is your that's
voltage.
Yeah. That's your voltage going, what's going on here? And then, getting rushed out the other way or something.
Those replace filter caps when that becomes an issue, right?
Filter caps, yeah. Well, filter caps will hum, first of all.
Right.
Now, they do have what they call suppression caps on your switches, something that stops an arc from happening when you throw the switch. And when those go bad, you can get a pop.
Wow.
But, so that was for Peter. That's the answer about his question about amp staying on. There's nothing wrong with your amp. It's fine. Let's check in with the crowd here. Sean said that it is the amazing, the same thing where I was talking about, the Evertune. That's that thing. We sold it on a guitar to Richie. He bought a guitar with that. I think we bought it from someone, and then we sold it used.
What kind of guitar?
I can't remember. No. It was some kind of not Paul Reed Smith, but something like fancy, maybe Asian made, but the fancier Asian made that was just all decked out. Anyways, if that's what you like, Sean's, isn't that called bleed off? I guess that you can call that bleed off. Your electricity just kind of getting used up. But it's going forward, not backwards. So is it bleeding? I don't know. You can call it whatever you want. Pre-ignition.
Post-ignition.
Well, pre-ignition in a car is when it keeps running. I don't know. It ignites when it shouldn't.
Wow.
After
you turn your car off. And it's
that's called pre-ignition, even though that's not happening before. So
it doesn't make any sense. But
yeah,
what do car makers know?
Let's see. I think we're caught up on the questions then. So
let's talk about
my topic for the day, folks. I harp on this a lot, and I'm going to keep harping on it. Monster cable is a marketing scam. So what I did for today is I thought I would introduce you to the monstrousness of the monster cable. So I cut one end off a monster cable.
That's another piece we need.
It's just a regular cable. There's nothing monster about this. It's just a regular old cable, but it does have these cheap ends. And so here you'll see one. Here's one of the ends, and these are not Swisscraft quality. And if you just kind of yank on it a little bit, it makes these clicky noises and stuff. It doesn't line up well, and so they would make this. So that in order to so their marketing scam is lifetime. So we use cheap parts, but it's a lifetime warranty. Just bring back your cable and we'll fix it or replace it.
And they cost 5 times more than a good everyday cable.
Than the good cable. These would fail so constantly that they came up with a better idea. They actually, in this later monster cable here, they encased this in what I guess is plastic, so that the parts wouldn't fail as easily. Good try. I mean, it's let's go back to the origins of monster cable, and for that, we'll talk to our resident origin.
1984 or 5. I was playing my bass through an SVT and perfectly happy. And probably Mark Steves. Somebody spoke to me about cable sizes and for speaker cables in particular, but the heavier the better, the thicker the wire the better. It allows your amp to work better. Guitars also having the right size. So I wasn't even looking around, but I was looking through a DiMarzio catalog, and they were offering monster cables.
The original monster cable was monstrously huge.
That's a monster cable.
Put it up closer even.
So when monster cables came out, I went, what's that? That's not a monster. This is a monster cable.
So
plugged it into my SVT, sounded 10-15% better.
Yeah.
Just like that.
So the idea was more cable, more copper, better quality copper, more capacitance, less resistance, and it will make your amp sound better. And that's how they started that's how they staked their claim. That's how they made their rep. They invented that idea. Before that, all speaker cable was lamp cord.
Yeah, it was 16 gauge, 18 gauge. I forget, this is 12 or 10. It's heavy duty cable. And here it is 35 years later, like new.
It's fine.
Yeah.
But then, back to the marketing thing, they started making guitar cables. But these guitar cables are just really, not even well made. It's an Asian made guitar cable that they were able to get that kind of genius marketing scheme of just it's so good, it is warranted forever. Oh yeah, so
I haven't done this in a long time.
Yeah,
I hope I'm still right.
Yeah. So this is a caliper Gary's looking at.
Yeah.
So here's the thing. Oftentimes someone comes in and says, hey, my guitar jack isn't working. We plug it in and it works. I'm like, it's working here. Do you have a monster cable? And the guy, actually comparing one monster to another monster, though.
That's not much.
Yeah.
Let me try the other.
I'll try this here. So, and then they say yes. And we go, well, monster cable is made to a metric number. It's 0.5 millimeter smaller than 1/4 of an inch.
Well, it's about 2/1000 thinner.
2/1000 thinner than
I remember it being
1/4 inch.
more, but just enough that when you plug it into a Switchcraft jack, it wiggles
just
a little bit.
Screw it up a little bit. So, and if you grab your monster cable and wiggle it like this, you can hear things moving around in there. Not a good idea.
Well, there was a period of a few years there, maybe in the late aughts, where getting a guitar in trade and finding a broken monster cable in there was great.
Yeah.
Go right over to Guitar Center and get a free guitar cable.
You can return it.
Yeah. Or people come in, can you fix? Don't bother. Go get a free one.
Yeah. But Guitar Center actually stopped supporting that. They stopped dealing with Monster cable. Yeah. Monster had a very unfortunate A turn of events.
Yeah, I was gonna ask, are they still
fortune.
in business?
They are still in business.
Hmm.
They made a great business deal, except they made one mistake in the deal. And so what they did was they were making accessories. They made headphones and stuff like that, speaker, like accessory cables, and they're doing really well with it. I think the owner himself was Korean, so he could really arrange that Korean production and get everything. I don't remember the exact details of that part, but they had really good contacts, in other words. And they made a deal with
No pun intended.
good contacts. They made a deal to manufacture and co-brand the headphones by Dr. Dre called Beats. And in the first year, Beats headphones were called Monster Beats. And so that's Dr. J and Jimmy, Ivoni or Iovine or Ivoni, depends if you're Italian or not.
Jimmy Iovine.
Iovine, but also in Italian would say Ivoni, like pepperoni.
Yeah.
Right?
Sure.
Iovine and so they were they just knew each other from around, and they started this little headphone thing with Monster. And somehow, after a year or two, they managed to get out of that deal and keep their name Beats. And they added it on to this streaming service company. And then they somehow, out of nowhere, built up $1 billion worth of value, and then I sold it to Apple.
Oh, okay.
And Monster missed out on all of that.
Hmm.
They were just, they helped them launch the headphone line, and then they got written out of it.
Wow.
So Monster Cable also sues a lot of people. Yeah, that's true. Not just Monster Cable, but
why do they sue people?
For the design.
Are we going to get sued for slamming them?
Yeah, for slamming. Please bring it on. I think they designed this. You'll see versions of this XLR. I think this is their proprietary. The cheap XLR is their proprietary design. The fact that this little rubber neoprene plasticky thing is in there, and so yeah, that's my Monster Cable story. Let's move on. Anyone out there, let us know if you got any questions or comments. Leave them in the comments, or leave your comments in the comments, and we'll get to it as we get to things. What's next?
Maybe we've run out of topics.
That will never happen. We'll just start discussing the same things over and over.
Pick
But
guards.
we
Haven't talked about pick guards.
did talk about amps that stay on.
Yeah.
All right, here's something that might get contentious, but that's fun. I think the people want to see that. Capacitors for guitars. Which capacitors to use and why?
Well, I had an interesting experience recently. I have to apologize because my technical knowledge of such things is limited. Somebody brought in a guitar. They wanted to replace all the electronics except the pickup, and it was a P90. It's like, okay, it had 250 pots in it. So yeah, that makes sense. It's a single coil, but it's a huge single coil. And it had some cap that I couldn't make out what it was for a tone cap. So I thought, well, okay, I'll put a 22 in because that's what you normally put in with a single coil. And it did almost nothing. Oh, okay. Well, maybe it is a humbucker, sort of, even though it's a single coil. So I put a 47 in, worked great. So that's the rule of thumb: single coils, 22s, humbuckers, 47s. Doesn't matter if it's a bass, guitar, P90s. I guess they like 47s too.
Okay, keep going.
That's just the standard. That's what Fender did. That's what Gibson did. Fender did occasionally use 1 meg pots and other things to get different sounds, but of course there's about 5 million other capacitor value choices. You could put a 26 or a 44 or whatever.
But I was specifically wanting to fight on what kind of capacitor to put in. Whether put in the Sprague, whether the old ceramic capacitors. So when you bought a Fender guitar, your 1961 pre-CBS Fender Strat does not have a Sprague cap in it.
It's got a little disc,
One of
ceramic
those little
disc.
ceramic disc caps.
Kind of looks like the clay dots on the fingerboard.
Yeah.
with wires sticking out. Well, I can be the old fogey and say,
Yeah.
doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter. And that's
But
one opinion.
I understand because the last 5 or 6 years, I've been unable to find ceramic disc caps that look like old ceramic disc caps.
Mm-hmm.
The new ones are these weensy little things.
Yeah.
So they're supposedly the same thing, but and they work. But mostly we sell orange drops because they're better quality. Obviously, you look at it, it's really well
Yeah,
made.
it's rated at a higher voltage.
Right.
That just means there's just more excess voltage. There's no voltage that really goes through them, but
Right.
just the excess of voltage is just kind of keeps that headroom
So that's
effect.
been my answer to the question of
Yeah, the
what's the difference
sprays.
between the
But then,
caps. I said, well, the orange drop is obviously better. It costs a couple bucks more. It'll probably last way longer. Not to say that old ceramic caps that are 7 years old are broken or not working,
yeah,
but they're
but you
pretty.
more often see them broken.
Well, they eventually get overheated, or there's only so many ways you can destroy a cap.
Yeah,
They don't
Especially
just
when
die
they
a
come out,
natural
right.
death. But so, but
oh, they do die a natural death. The oil and tinfoil, those are just
even a
die just
ceramic
sitting
cap.
there. Not ceramic, but
Yeah.
the whale oil.
Right. Yeah, those are different.
So some capacitors can just die from just sitting there. They forget the capacitors and they think they're popsicle sticks.
So I've never experimented with replace, take a Les Paul and put a ceramic cap on one pickup and put a orange drop.
Yeah,
on
well,
the
then
other
you have
and-
two different pickups.
Well,
There's
but they're
enough
close.
variation in there. You'd have to be very,
Yeah, but to get a real
scientific,
AV.
yeah.
That would be the
Now,
but
people are always talking about these alternate manufacturers, especially like the Russian-made military spec caps. People are going nuts for those now in guitars.
why?
Why? Probably quality issues or just people are searching. So this why? I can understand. So Gary's just why, and I'm like why, but I know why you're looking for something. You're looking to optimize something to the. And I was talking to someone about a microphone about this, but it's the same old story. So I was like, oh, I want to get this microphone. Should I get it modified? It's like, well, just buy the microphone you want. You know, if money's a problem, maybe buy something cheaper and modify it. But usually you buy something and modify it. The person who designed the thing knew what they were doing. If it's a thing that you want, if it's a Fender Stratocaster, or it's a really good microphone, Neumann or microphone or whatever, the person who did it knew what they were designing. They're top rate designers. So just trust them and leave their stuff alone. But if you get something, you're like, oh, I gotta mod this, or like, oh, I got this Gibson and I want to change all the stuff, and like, it starts to go like, I don't know, do you really want a Gibson? I guess
More than once, somebody's asked me to change their tone pots and caps,
Yeah.
and I go, why? Well, because I want a better quality pot and I want some orange drops. Why? Well, because they're better. I said, well, do you actually turn your tone pots? Well, hardly ever.
Yeah.
Then they'll do nothing.
Yeah. Well, no, they do something because they are in the circuit.
Not when the pot's on 10.
The pot's on 10, but it's just still going around in a circle, coming back. I don't know. There's a lot of I've talked to people. Actually, it was JJ Pugh, the producer, was doing this interview here on YouTube. I was watching it, and they were talking. Someone in the audience kind of asked this question about that sound of that John Mayer guitar in Daughters. How did you get that sound? And he's a top, rock producer, engineer. And he said, you know what? It was the pick. I have a box of 200 different picks, and I open it up and I tell the guitarist to go through it and try every pick and find the best sounding pick. And then he said that to make a point where he's just constantly getting everything to the nth degree. Like, it is the pick, it is the strings, it is the player, it is the microphone, it is the everything. Now that's one way to look at it. The other way to look at it is it doesn't matter. Just think of the, crap. Brian May, his entire career, played a guitar, the first guitar he ever made at home in his dad's shop. And it was weird.
It is.
It's still weird to this
Very
day.
little normal about it.
He was just guessing how to make a guitar.
But he makes it sound good.
But he makes it sound good. And other people, they make replicas now that are cool and weird.
Right.
But he just created sound out of that. There's a lot to be said for that.
Remembering an Ernie Ball poster from many years ago, 10 things that affect your guitar tone. Of course, the first thing was guitar strings.
Mm-hmm.
But in the top 10 were, how much sleep did you get last night?
How much water you're drinking?
Right.
Are your fingers swollen or not?
Yeah. I think what kind of pick are you using?
Mm-hmm.
None of the things you'd think of. It wasn't like, does your guitar sound good? Does your amp sound good?
Now, this is a slightly cross purposes because we make a bunch of money modifying people's guitars for them. People come in and say, I don't like these pickups. Give me new pickups. And
well, we're just making it the way they want.
Yeah. And it's your guitar. You're welcome to do whatever you want with it. Don't let anyone tell you differently. Yeah. And people are like, oh, no, you can't. That's a Strat. You can't change that, While it's yours, I mean, if it's a historic Strat, if it's like Dave Gilmour's number 002 or whatever, don't route it or whatever. Don't swap the pickups. But if it's just a
Highway
guitar,
1 Strat,
if it's a Highway 1, do what you want. It's
That's all right.
yours. Yeah, I own a Fender. I own a Hofner bass from the '60s. I've played it for years. I used to just lean it up against the bass amp and go get a drink at the bar. And people are like, you can't do that. And I'm like, hell yeah, I can do that. It's my bass. Do whatever I want with it. Thing's got dings on it, sure, but you can't live your life like that. So I think we bored people. Let's see here. No one's chimed in at all. In the
maybe we've
top.
overwhelmed them.
Overwhelmed them with our old manishness. So yes, there's going back to the caps. There is a difference. The difference may be slight. Some people are always looking for it. And I was just talking about that thing about the microphone. Some people just want that. I want the extra 5%. I want that on my side. I can believe that. I, for a while, was totally at the point where I was like, if you don't like the pickups, don't buy the guitar. Just go find the guitar with the pickups you want and buy that one. I'm not quite like that now. I can understand like really liking a guitar, but like wanting to swap the pickups. Because I own a Gibson Les Paul with mini humbuckers.
Well, there's also speaking of Bobby Hearn,
Yeah.
there's the Bobby Hearn effect. He played notoriously awful guitars that he abused and mistreated and drilled holes in. And he could come in the store and pick up what to me was an unplayable, out of tune, out of whack guitar, and it sounded really good.
Didn't matter if it was out of tune. He just kind of bent it into tune.
Yeah.
And he just.
He liked his strings rubbing on the frets.
Yeah.
And of course, there's many more famous examples of people who attained their tone.
I think it's Well, when we're talking about, here's a sidetrack of our sidetrack. What about I think it's great that Paul McCartney has like a half dozen guitars. He had this first Hofner bass he used for the first 4 or 5 years of the Beatles, and then he switched to a Rickenbacker for a couple of years because they gave him one. And then he switched back to the Hofner, and when he stayed on the Rickenbacker. He switched back to the Hofner and the Beatles, so that for the Let It Be. Went back to the Rickenbacker for most of the 70s.
There was a Yamaha in there.
Played a Yamaha in the early 80s because they gave him one.
Yeah,
and he kind of liked it.
Not the cheap Yamaha.
Yeah, the B 2000
or something.
A cool Yamaha bass. He played it for a few years, still got it. Went back to the Hofner, still playing that damn Hofner.
Right.
He owns a Les Paul that's given to him by Les Paul or whatever, but he probably has just a few guitars compared to someone like me. I probably own more left-handed guitars than Paul McCartney does.
You probably do. Well, I don't know.
But throughout his career, he just found his guitars and and he just uses them and makes his music with them, and that's why he's Paul McCartney and you're not. Bruce Springsteen still plays that damn pawn shop broadcaster.
Naked Lady Telly.
Yeah.
Our broadcaster. Yeah.
I think it was, or a no-caster, whichever one it was. Yeah. But he might have retired a year or two ago. He used to throw it to the roadie still. like, halfway through, when the set, when he did, part of the show was he
Right.
threw it to the roadie, and the roadie had to catch that guitar.
If he didn't, oh well.
And if he didn't, they'll just fix it later.
Another ding.
No, you have to catch Bruce Springsteen's guitar. There's no, there's no failure is not an option when we're talking about Bruce Springsteen's Telecaster. But it's a really great thing just to be happy with what you got.
And my experience playing over the years, I want to say, and I never really thought about this, it's more just home. The guitar you've had for 25 years and you've played at 10 million gigs at, it feels right. You know how to get all the sounds you want out of it. I knew when I had a jazz bass for many, many years, I sort of knew what each note on the fretboard sounded like.
Yeah.
On this song, don't play the F here, play it over here. It sounds better. It felt just right. Had many other basses over the years, all good basses, tried them all. Great for a few songs. Pick up the okay. I'm comfortable.
Yeah,
I know what to do with this instrument.
Yeah, if I don't know what I'm doing, I'll bring the Hofner bass because I'm most likely to be able to pull something off on the Hofner bass. So if I'm showing up at a gig where I don't know the songs or whatever, I got to bring the old standby. Right. No messing around with that.
So I think you could bond like that with most anything.
Yeah,
that functions and
that's true.
Get your sound or
it is.
sound.
Yeah, it's up to you mostly. It's not up to the guitar. The guitar is just a guitar. It's going to do what it's going to do.
Right. Yeah, we're really.
You got to meet the guitar at least halfway, folks.
It's been kind of nice for the past 10 or 15 years that not everybody's trying to sound like Steve or Ray Vaughan.
Yeah,
it was fun for a while, but it got boring.
That's a whole other tangent that we don't have enough time for me to go off on my Steve Ray Vaughan tangent. But I appreciate Steve Ray Vaughan. I would say, his music, he's a trailblazer, he's everything and more. God bless him. It's a shame he died at such a young age. He had so much more to give. But folks, he did some damage to blues music. Blues has not recovered from the Stevie Ray Vaughan era. And here's more editorializing. They're opening a new jazz and blues club here in Portsmouth, New Hampshire, and they're spending millions of dollars.
$20 million, I heard.
Yeah. And we're gonna be the premier spot for jazz and blues. First of all, no one makes money with jazz and blues music, not bars, not restaurants, not there is
maybe at the music hall. Tony Bennett did okay there.
Blues, like what's happening in blues right now? That's
blues
really
is dead.
Yeah.
What's his name? We have a customer who's been trying to start a blues band for 10 years, 15 years. He'll get a few guys together, they'll rehearse. He's a good player, good singer. They're probably a fine band. They can't get a gig anywhere. Nobody wants a blues band.
Yeah, except the $20 million bar now in the center of downtown Portsmouth. But they don't want your blues band. They want I don't know the business model on that. Well, but and so I'm sorry to say that some of that is Steve Ray Vaughan's fault. He just ruined us all with that hot smoking Texas blues.
Yeah, it was
prevalent.
To a lot of people it was not blues.
Yeah, there's that too. All right, we got a couple comments to catch up with here. Michael says, if someone's going to trade in a guitar to a store, would you want them to just show up with it, send you pics and model info first? You can just show up with it. We can evaluate it while you wait.
The most important thing, though, is to have strings on it.
Yes. You can't evaluate a guitar that doesn't have strings.
There's a lot of things you can't tell about any guitar if it's not strung up to pitch. It's sheer guesswork. So don't take the strings off.
And the reason they're off is usually a bad thing.
Yeah.
Someone took them off because, But so we evaluate guitars for sale and for trade, but also if you just bring a guitar in, like, should I fix this? I got this at a yard sale. Is it all right? We'll just tell you. Give you the straight story on that.
Yeah.
And then he also mentioned those Yamahas and PV basses were great. So he's talking about the 80s Yamaha and PV basses. The PV had like this second generation of basses they made in the 80s. That kind of slick. The PV T40 is a legendary bass.
Too heavy.
It is heavy. Solid maple? What is it? Solid something.
Solid ash.
Is it ash?
It's really heavy.
It is and a lot of screws.
Most pickguard screws on any guitar. But I was gonna speaking of Yamaha, Santana had there was a Santana guitar.
Yep.
That was kind
That
of
was a
a
Yamaha?
2000 model or
Yeah.
3000 model. It was a Yamaha.
Yeah. Well, Yamaha doesn't make crap, that's for sure. And even their crap is all right. But yes, so here's the thing I will say about this. Now Fender and Gibson, they really want to work with their artists and get signature models for artists who are, mid-range artists, and they'll give someone a Squire signature model, or they'll, kind of, it used to be they wanted nothing to do with the artists. The artist would show up and like, can you make one of these, but do this and then. No. Just like, get out of here, kid. Get out of here, Steve Miller. You're bugging us. And or just whoever. And they would go to the Japanese companies and say, sure, we'll make whatever you want. Or let's make a signature model for you, And
Who was the metal guy who was really popular? He killed the whole endorsement thing.
was it the guy from Extreme?
No, not Nuno Betancourt.
Yeah.
I can't think of his name. Anyways, there was a Gibson. He went manufacturer over a few years. Just had like 12 different endorsement deals
Slash?
with everybody else. No.
He just went from company to company making a
He's big on
signature
pointy
model.
guitars like Explorers and V's.
Eddie Van Halen?
No.
He had a lot of signature models. He had a PV signature. People forget
Right.
that. Because the 5150 was first a PV amp, and he had PV guitars. And then he ended up, Fender now owns EVH, but he had a signature Kramer, I'm sure, or a signature, he had a famous signature Fender.
Yeah.
I'm sure he went through a bunch. And then he had the Wolfgang guitars, which were made for him, probably. Music Man? Yeah, we talked about that last week.
Did make some. Yeah, he went to a number of companies.
Yeah.
I'm sure it was like being an athlete, Okay, well, that's great. We'll give you $8 million if you come over here and do this and put your name on that.
I think in the signature guitar business, it's not even that much of a thing. It's not like a sponsorship thing. It's like we'll give you a few guitars,
Or you can have them at wholesale.
if we can use. Yeah, exactly. You can.
That's a common endorsement deal now.
They're not. The endorsement deals are not what they used to be, but also they're not as prestige. They're not necessarily a moneymaker for the artist, because artists don't make money, folks. All right, so we got anything left on here? Yeah.
Well, more stuff.
Well, there's only one thing left on this list of my list of things I want to talk about. Anyone out there got anything else? You can chime in with it. We're going to be winding down in a few minutes, but this is something that's so important. I want to put it in the beginning of a show. So maybe we'll do a to be continued. Hold on, folks. Here we go.
Don't ask me what he's talking about. Oh,
I'm talking about neck set. So we talked about this in previous shows about especially with the old Yamahas, they're all in need of a neck reset. The red label Yamahas, and
not all of them, but a lot.
all but one.
I've seen a couple.
No.
Wow, a good one.
And so, what do we mean when we talk about a neck set or a neck reset, especially? Let's talk about neck set in general. So here's where your neck connects to your guitar, and on a non-Fender guitar, it's a dovetail joint, and it's
traditionally,
sometimes they're not. Actually, well, traditionally it's not, but in the Martin
commonly,
style, it's commonly. So it's a really good strong joint. It's self-clamping joint. So once you get it all the way into place, it holds it. If it's made well, it holds itself into place, and that's usually what happens on most Gibsons. But when we're talking about our friends at K, they were making guitars very quickly, and there's some sawdust in there and this and that. And over the years, their neck joints kind of go bad. And so the first place you see it is right here. There'll be a gap right here on the back side here, just a little gap, and you're like, I can't even imagine why that would be such a big problem. Well, it sets off a whole litany of problems.
64th of an inch here is an 1/8 of an inch here.
Yeah. So this moves just a little, and your strings move up an 1/8 of an inch when this moves to 64th of an inch.
And now you can't play it.
And now it becomes difficult to play. So what we call positive neck set is when the neck is, let me get this right. Negative neck set is what you want when your neck goes backwards.
Right.
So if you talk about the plane, they should kick downward. Positive neck set is a negative thing to have, and that's when your neck kind of kicks up. And when you have a bad neck, that happens. You see your neck goes up instead of down. But also, these guitars and a money-saving thing, they don't have a truss rod, and so they also banana in the neck. And just a gentle bend to the so that becomes a problem, and so that makes it even harder to play.
So the next set is
the next set.
Taking it off.
A neck reset is you got to take it off and you got to change some of the parameters so it fits better, tighter, so the glue fits, so the joint is stronger. And sometimes your neck reset, like in the case of a guitar that's degraded a little bit, like on some of my Harmony guitars or some of those Yamahas, you kind of have to make a new angle because your flat top guitar is no longer flat. You got to kick it back further. And then you got to change the parameters on the dovetail, which is the reason why it costs $500 is it's a lot of work. It's just try it, put it on, take it off, put it on, move it around. It's 12 hours of work. It's crazy.
Remember Mike Endicott did a lot of them, and his goal was to dry fit them.
Yeah.
So he'd get it on so tight without glue that you could play it.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
You string it up.
So
there's no glue in here. But it'd take him hours and hours to get that dovetail, both sides of it, to fit perfectly at the right angle. And then he glue it in.
Yeah, of course he glue it in. And these old guitars are also held on with high glue initially. So high glue does degrade with, first of all, it degrades with time. Just like our hides degrade with time. It's, there's organic component to that. And then the so the glue can give way. If you kind of pick up an old guitar, just give the neck a little wiggle. You hear the crackling noise, like Rice Krispies. That's just glue. Yeah, that's just old glue that's just not even doing anything. It's just giving up. So, but I'm going to mention that again, and maybe we'll do a flat top example in another show, just because we are coming to the end of things, and maybe some people went home and went to bed already. So let's do the wrap it up. Anything to add? Anyone out there in TV land? Speak now or forever hold your self. So we do this Wednesdays, 6 o'clock. You can, if you're not watching this in real time, but want to talk, join the conversation, you can just leave a comment and we'll integrate that into our next conversation. And if you want to ask a question for next time, you can leave it here. Come by next time, next Wednesday, 6 o'clock. Gary's Guitars on YouTube. Check us out on Instagram and all that. You hit like on this video and like everything you can and all that reminders, and that just helps us get a little more presence in the electronic world. Anything to add?
Feedback.
That's what we need. We need feedback. Loud, screaming feedback.
We sweat and rock and roll for an hour every week. We need positive feedback.
Where would rock and roll be without feedback? That was Dave Gilmour and Pink Floyd. All right. Thank you. Good night. Say good night, Gary.
Good night.
Here we go. And we're out.